Every doc wants to make a bigger impact. What's getting in your way? You're tuned into the Subluxation Squad podcast. One squad, one mission. Chiropractic for all.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Squadcast. Hi, Steve. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's episode 20. It's
episode 20, 20. Yeah, another mini milestone for us. Well, I'm really excited about this episode today. I believe we have our first non-doctor guest on the episode today. So somebody who's inside the profession, but like me, a little bit looking at it from a different angle. So I hope you guys are all excited about this too. We're looking at a type of subluxation today that I would say most chiropractors almost never talk about in this way, but I'm pretty sure it affects every single practice, and that is the physical space and the flow of your office. So Steve, help me welcome Carolyn Boldt from Crossfields. She has helped design and optimize clinics all over the profession. So she sees these problems every day. Carolyn, welcome to the Squadcast. And for the people who might not know you yet, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what Crossfields does, and how you ended up doing this?
Founder of Crossfields with
Hey Carolyn, we're having some audio visual challenges.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now. Let's
okay.
Yeah.
Let's try again.
Can we start over?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Carolyn Boldt. I'm the co-founder of Crossfields. We're an architecture and interiors firm, and we work internationally with chiropractors and holistic healthcare practitioners to help them optimize their space and flow, attract, retain patients, and in their whole process of understanding what it takes to get through the process of building out. So
yeah,
let me tell you how I got here.
Yeah, well, I am interested because as we were discussing some of this before we went live, it's, I think this is one of the most overlooked areas, in practices. Most people look at this, sometimes never at all, or it's an afterthought. So I'd love to learn, how you got into the chiropractic space specifically, and what you're doing for chiropractors.
I'd love to share. So 2003, we were doing design build. My husband and I worked together. We were doing design build in the Atlanta area, and Life University became our largest client. From 2003 to up until about 2016, we were doing facility work for them all over campus. And what that did is got us very immersed in the business of chiropractic and the understanding and the background of chiropractic. At the same time, we were already avid chiropractic patients. My daughter in 1991 was saved from surgery at 2 years old because her babysitter's roommate was a student at Life University and talked me into bringing her in. And so she was healed of chronic tonsillitis, and she still has her tonsils today. And my grandkids are all under chiropractic care, and that's our lifestyle. So when we started working at Life, we were already, super proponents of it. And then in 2009, a couple of two different students asked if we could help their office. And I fell in love with helping a independent doctor as opposed to huge corporations that I had worked with forever. In 2010, Life actually asked us if we would teach classes. So we developed a class on developing your office, and it was about a 6-hour class we did over the weekend just for grad, just to give them feed, because we saw from the outside that chiropractors were not really respected, especially when we were doing this in 2010. And one of the problems was they didn't show up professionally. And one of the first things that we know as an architectural designer is your environment is the first face of your practice to any person that walks in. 75% of the decision is made when you first walked in. So what we were seeing is that if we could help these chiropractors understand that the quality of their office will impact their success, then we could help elevate the whole profession. And so that was the classes we taught. And then in 2012, we just started having enough chiropractors ask us to help them. Then in 2012, we developed a system to help them virtually. And that just continued. And now it's what we've done. We've done over 700 offices since that time. And we've actually done it all over the world. Our specialty is in the United States. But that's what we do. We help practices be more successful.
Yeah, I think it's really awesome. It's definitely something. I'm 24 years in the profession, and I've seen it all in chiropractic offices, as I'm sure you have.
Yes.
With the shag carpet. This is extreme, right? But the shag carpet, the paint on the walls peeling, the tables cracking, so many different pieces. And why would we put an extra interference, put a subluxation in between our ability to reach the public on something that's so fixable?
It's very fixable. And it's interesting because other businesses already understand this. And so our goal was to help, and I know, especially because we still teach classes at Life University in Palmer, Florida, and some other places, but it's like the complaint is, we learn everything in school and we don't know how to run a business. Well, I went to design school. I didn't learn how to run a business either. That's something you have to do with experience when you get out. But a piece of that is a business owner understands. If you're in a retail establishment or a hospitality establishment, you understand that environment is a huge piece of your business. And I don't understand why it's not being taught more to chiropractors. I mean, I'm trying to do my best to teach it.
Yeah.
I love that you're saying that, because I so connect with that, because brand, for me, that's part of branding. Like,
Yes.
like the way you show up, that's
Yes.
like an external expression of your brand. So it totally makes sense. And I'm like really interested in connecting the internal brand on one side, but also like the logo and the colors and everything, and how that then, like the personality of the brand, how that shows up in your space. Like that's like something that I love. We can talk for hours on that. I love when we have those conversations.
And we have very much. Yes.
Yeah, total design nerds, when we get together, the hours fly by. I'm curious what you see as, subluxation squad. We're talking about the biggest subluxations in practices. What do you see in chiropractic offices that doctors might not even realize is hurting their practice, that, from a design or flow or, like branding perspective?
So I'm going to focus on the aesthetics, because there is the idea of flow. Okay, let me get flow out of the way. So maximizing space and flow is the foundation. It has to flow well. And a lot of chiropractors understand that. There's a lot of practice management groups that really teach that, because it's fundamentally an operational flow, right? And if you can save time, you save money. If you save flow of the people, so you have 3 different flows. You have the chiropractor itself and the staff, and that's probably most important. But you also have the new patient flow, which is escorted. So what do they first see? And they're forming an opinion as they go through the space. And then the third one is the existing patient flow. In a chiropractic office, most chiropractors have patients that are under care. And so they'll come in and they'll be less escorted, or sometimes totally unescorted. And you want to make sure that flow works without impacting the other 3. So it's taught a lot with practice management groups, because it's foundational assembly line understanding of operation. But why aesthetics are not taught, I don't know. Because if you think about, I'm just going to use retail, okay? You go to a store and you walk into that store and you're expecting to buy something. And if the aesthetics of that store do not align with your brand and what you're selling, then it's an uphill sell. So let me give you an example. This is what I use with the clients, with the students when we teach them. Take Walmart. Okay, that's all over the world. So you understand Walmart. When you walk in Walmart, that was very, very intentionally designed that way, to be the low price leader. You walk in, you expect a deal. So you don't expect a lot of service. And that's why there's signage everywhere, right? And so you walk in and the bright lights, the hard surfaces, the clutter, all of those things support that, hey, they're the low price leader and I'm going to get a deal. Okay. That's not wrong. It's just a business principle. So it's the same thing as we cross over. Let's cross all the way over to a really high-end jewelry store. You walk into a high-end jewelry store and you can see a totally different expression. Everything is individually placed. It's very purposeful. There's no signage. You do care about what you dress like, as opposed to Walmart. And you also don't have any expectations except that you're going to have the best of customer service there. Okay. And you're going to pay for it. You expect that. So those are two extremes for the chiropractor. And there's so many different types of offices, right? There's the ones that are much more fast and much more high volume. And then you have the ones that, we work with integrated functional neurology, which is very slow. There'll be a patient there all day long. So depending on that practice, how are you setting up that first impression? And we have we not only do we have statistics, but we have testimonials of how much easier it is to sign patients up for care when the image of their practice matches the dollar that they're asking for. Okay. So that's retail. Now, hospitality design is the culture that's created. So if you think about the colors, you think about the lighting, you think about those things, those create psychology. In branding, what you do, Katja, it's very two-dimensional for the most part. But when you envelop a person with it, it invokes psychological responses. Okay. So one thing is that there's a whole study on design evidence of healing spaces. So you want to make sure your space is a healing space, and the sicker your patients are, the more important that is. At the same time, if you are focused on performance, that's going to be a different aesthetics for that environment to give energy to those people. You know what I'm saying? So it just depends on, you have to really know who is your ideal client, who you're trying to attract, and then your whole environment should be encapsulating everything of your philosophy and everything of who you are, all the way through to, the colors on the wall. Does that help?
Oh yeah, that's fantastic. I have a couple questions. The one I'm going to save for later. This first question, and maybe you see this. My impression is that out there in the chiropractic space, a lot of offices start looking all very similar. Like maybe it's because they worked with you in terms of some.
No, go to our portfolio. They're all different, but keep going.
Yeah. So, and maybe it's because they're just copying what they see, and they're not matching their brand. They're not even aware of what their avatars are. But yeah, you go on websites, you see a lot of similarities. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you answered it very, very well, Steve. It's that they are copying. They're not identifying their own identity. Now, if they're copying the identity of someone that they consider a mentor and they want to 100% copy it, go for it. That's what franchises, that's what these venture firms are trying to do. They're trying to brand, because it could be a branding. But if you want to stand out, you don't want to match. Do you know what I'm saying? You don't want to match. You need to stand out. And so that's one thing. The other thing that happens is that there's a lot of do-it-yourselfers, and they come and they look at things and they say, hey, I like that. And they hand it to their local decorator and say, just match it. And that's the cheapest way to get something done. So is it bad? It is if it doesn't match your brand. It doesn't work if it doesn't match your brand. It doesn't. And when I say brand, and Katja understands this very well, that is who you are. That's the essence of how you want to show up to people and how you want to demonstrate you. And when I say you, usually it's one chiropractor that's kind of the driver, but in companies, it's the brand, it's the name of the business and what's showing up. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but that's what we.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, I think, just to chip in here for a second, I always talk about branding means managing expectations. And that's exactly what you're saying. Like they get a certain expectation, first of all, from wherever they make first contact with you, whether that's on social media or on your website or whatever, that's the first impression. And then whatever follows after that has to match.
Yes.
You have to keep managing, they see something and that creates something else in their mind. They have certain expectations based on that. And then you just have to keep managing those expectations and guide them along the way. So they expect the right things. And the right thing is the thing that you actually deliver at the end. That's what you want them to expect, right? So if you deliver and over deliver on those expectations, that's how you create lifelong fans and, patients that keep coming back and staying and referring and all those other good things.
Yes. Yes.
One more thing that you mentioned earlier that I really liked was you were talking about hospitality. And that's something that I think is really important in the chiropractic space or any healthcare space, really, because I don't think a lot of people see themselves as being part of the hospitality industry, because we usually think about like hotels and restaurants maybe. But I think especially in chiropractic, that applies too. There's a really great book called Unreasonable Hospitality that I highly recommend to anybody. I'm sure it's an audiobook as well. There's a great interview with the guy who wrote it, whose name I don't remember right now. It's Will something. On Simon Sinek's podcast, he interviewed him, and it's a great interview about how any business that has anything to do with people, where you work with people, needs to be in the hospitality space, and how to do that. And it's really about paying attention to people.
Yes.
So,
yes,
go ahead.
Paying attention to people. So when we talk about, it's very important that and this is something I also know that's taught a lot in practice management groups, is when your front desk, how do they show up? How do they greeted? Even to the point where coming around the desk and greeting people, just seeing there's so many things that can happen to help elevate that hospitality, to be more of the Ritz-Carlton hospitality, right? So yes, but once again, if the package is deteriorated and has duct tape on it, what does that say? Right. Do you know what I'm saying? Or if it's, especially if it's dated. So what we see a lot is a practice will get going and it'll run, and then it'll stay financially viable at a certain rate, but everything dates in 7 to 10 years. So people will walk in and they have a following of existing patients, but they don't have very many new patients. So then I love this story. So you'll have let's say a son comes in to take over his father's office. It could be a daughter, it could be a mother, it could be all that, but let's just say a son taking over your father's office. They'll call us and go, please help, because I'm trying to be the doctor now and nobody wants to take me seriously to bring in any new patients because they see my father's, shag carpet, as Steve said, or the paneling on the wall or whatever it is. So yeah, having that new thing. So we see immediately when a doctor moves or when they update their space, they immediately start to have more new patients, because the patients that are there that love this doctor are now proud to refer. Yeah. They're proud.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
What do you feel are some of the biggest interferences to things? We talked about flow, right? What are some of the biggest bottlenecks limiting flow in an office?
Narrow corridors. So really skinny hallways. Okay. Because when you have a hallway that's less than 5 feet, somebody has to stop for people to pass. Yeah. And it's so subtle. It's just so subtle. So that's one. The other one is really looking at where the accumulation of people in B, and are people having to move out of the way for that to happen? A lot of times it happens at the checkout, and where is that? And can you just relocate that? Can you do something differently just to consider that flow? So those are the two biggest ones. The other one we see a lot is the doctor getting stuck in the hallway. So a lot of people understand the idea of T-walls where the doctor can move behind them, but you don't have to have a low T-wall. If you want a closed room, just create an opening between the adjusting rooms at the back. You have a slider door on it, whatever you need, because a lot of people don't want, not a lot, but there's plenty that don't want open or semi-open adjusting. And how do they still have that flow? So those are the three biggest things we see.
This is, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the three different practices that I've had. The first, I bought an office, and it was not the right avatar. It was not the right office. I shouldn't have bought it, but I did. I didn't know better. And it had narrow hallways, and it was so cramped, like it was horrible. So then, and it had individual, care rooms. There was rooms with doors, which I also not a fan of. Now my second
was that the office where we met?
No, you met in my second office. My second office, I put a lot of intention, and I really, I think Pacho, I think you would say it was the branding was pretty nice. It could have been better, but it looked much better. Bigger hallways, still closed rooms though, and it wasn't until I saw people having open concept that I was like, oh my gosh, this feels so much better, and I bet I would love this so much more. So anyway, I sold that practice, started another practice from scratch. It was just an empty area, so I built it completely open, huge ceilings, entirely open, and it fit my brand because I was seeing mostly kids and families, and it was we wanted to have a health party every day. Like that's how we described it to people. That's because it was chaotic at times.
You created a culture. Keep going. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah,
absolutely. So, I see. I've experienced that. I experienced the pain of not understanding. Number one, like what is my brand? Who are the people I'm looking to serve? Not understanding flow, right? What we're talking about now, and then finally having gone through all that, having a better awareness. But I know that if I'd worked with you, one in the beginning, or even at any stage, it could have just made such a better experience for everybody.
Well, I love that you said that. So one of the things that I really am an advocate for, and very similar to what Pacha says, is that starting out when your business plan, understanding how much square footage you really need and what your brand image in your physical environment should be before you ever start considering looking for space, remodeling a space, doing anything, because that sets you up for this parameter of what would be what will this physical environment support my business goal? Instead of, I got this physical environment, now I need to shove my business goal into it. Mm-hmm. And so what you did on the third one was exactly that. I mean, you whether you probably know it or not, you knew how many square feet you needed. You knew the image that you wanted. You knew all of that going into it. And then you were able to create it. And it was because of your experiences. So you could just come to us and we would kind of process through those experiences. It's the idea of hiring the expert. Okay. Hiring the expert will cut you through, because our third pillar, we maximize space and flow, attract and retain patients, and then saving time and money. And that's from hiring an expert, because what we do is we understand, because we do this every day, we understand everything that needs to happen and the proper order it needs to happen in. And that saves time, that saves money, that saves costly mistakes. So anyway, that's why we're doing this, to help grow this profession. So you guys can save more lives, Exactly.
I love that you said, that you bring it back to the brand, because I think a lot of people don't realize that is part of their brand. The way you design your office and the way your your team moves in the office and the way your patients move in the office and the whole communication, which includes the visual communication of your space and, you know, the whole experience you have there. It's a brand experience. It will shape what those people say about you once they leave the office.
Yes.
Right? Like what they tell their neighbors, their friends, their family about, like it all be influenced by the experience they had, and that includes the space, and that is part of branding, and you need to be clear about that before you get started, ideally, if you want to save some save some money and time.
And I just want to say something. I want to say something, you know, because people think interior design, interior architecture is a luxury, and my whole purpose is it's not in business. It's not a luxury in business. It's a part of your positioning, everything, but it does not have to be expensive. It just has to be intentional. You know, you can do a lot with color and light, a lot, and not
that actually would have been my question. Like, I'm wondering about, well, first of all, it sounds like you don't only work with people who move into a new space. Like, do you also have clients who are like, okay, we're in this space, we're not going to move, but like, what can we do to improve, you know, the aesthetics, and what can we do to improve the flow and everything?
About one third of our one third of our clients are in their existing space, and 2/3 of them are either moving or built. I mean, we even do ground ups, but 2/3 of them fall into that. Hey, I need a permit. Do you know? I need to go through the whole design process. But 1/3 of them are, you know, I need a facelift, all the way to I just need to I'm adding services and I don't know how to fit them in there. You know, so that's a flow issue, space planning thing. So yes, we do.
So what does that look like? I mean, I would guess a lot of people don't even know they have a problem. I mean, they might notice flow problems, but aesthetics, you know, like you either kind of have an eye for it or you don't, I would say.
Yes.
So if somebody like steps into that, they're listening to this conversation right now and they're like, okay, what am I looking for in my office? Like, you know, how do I know I have a problem?
I have a source for that because I've been asked so many times. So I created a e-booklet, I don't know, way back into 2010 or whatever. And it's 5 ways. Let's see, I've got it up on the screen to read it. 5 ways to instantly upgrade your office image. Okay. And I'll send you a link to that, but you can go onto our website and it's, you can look under free resources. And that's one of the free resources, but that one was very much intended for exactly what you said. The chiropractor that goes, what do I need? And it's 5 different things to look at. And the very first thing we tell them is you don't look at it. You find somebody that's a trusted advisor, ideally somebody who would be your ideal client that you can trust to be honest with you and walk through it. Because what happens is we don't see it anymore.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So, and you want to be the new face walking in. What do you think? What do you see? So, and they're probably, especially if they're a patient, they probably can't wait to tell you what's wrong.
Thanks for asking. Finally, I've been meaning to tell you this.
With my pediatric practice, we used to have meetings where we'd get on the ground at the meeting and look around. We'd crawl on the ground, look around the office to see what the kids are seeing, and then we'd ask the kids to give us. And kids are going to be very honest and blunt, what they like, what they didn't like, things like that. And you know,
I love it.
Such an important process.
I'm so glad you did that. I mean, I don't want to go off on it, but
no, go for it.
Does, you know, what we're talking about is designing for your ideal patient. It's like, if you can get your kids to feel like they are valued, just the scale of things in a pediatric office makes a difference. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it makes them feel so much, because when things are bigger than the human scale, you feel a sense of humility and humbleness and things, which is great when you want it to be that way. But for a child, imagine everything around them feel that way. So,
yeah, especially, you know, in the kind of clinic that you have, Steve, which is more, you know, like more stressed kids, I would say, you know, like you really kind of want to take that down a notch, even like reduce stress as much as possible, right?
Yeah, these are things I coach chiropractors on a lot. So Carolyn, I'm really excited to connect with you because I want to bring you into our neurodevelopmental trainings, and so people can understand these things. Because we had 3 separate areas in our office for different kids, right?
Oh, yes.
Because some want the soft sensory thing and to get away from the kids who are running, bumping into everything, right? And so we had those 3 different areas, and it was so critical. Otherwise, it would have been chaos to put them all together. And that's what people don't realize is that like, oh, I don't want to do this. Well, they don't want to do it because they're not doing it intentionally and with deep understanding of how to structure it.
Yes. And I'm assuming that you paid attention to the colors, the lights, the texture.
Colors, lights, the fish tank. I went deep into feng shui on it too, to like understand like just the energy flow and things like that. I'm the guy that dives in deep into stuff, but I wish I had done it before. Like I hadn't. And the only reason I dove in deep is because I experienced all the pain of the past, and it took me 15 years to get to that place. Now imagine if our listeners and individuals were to do it now early on in school, which is great that you were doing it with students, but then work with you. And as you're talking about this, say it doesn't have to be expensive, right, to do these things. I look at it as what's the cost of not doing it, right? All it takes, because people, as you mentioned, people won't refer to a place that they don't feel comfortable referring friends and family because it's a reflection on them, right? They'll go there because they have the relationship and they're getting service and help, but they won't tell others. So how much is that costing people not referring? And if you just look at it as in a year, will you get 5 less referrals? Well, that's $15,000 less dollars coming in, right? It's such a no-brainer, and the return on investment I see is so there, for people.
Yes. Yeah. It's easy to start talking about the flow too, because you understand when you slow down, you can't see as many patients.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that one's an easy one. But yes, what you just said is it's easy to document how many minutes, right? But it's hard to document that aesthetic impact.
Yeah, you can't.
I mean, there's a lot of data. There's a lot of data. There's a lot of data to share, but I
think anyone who's been in business long enough can clearly see how that impacts things. And everyone who, if they want to be honest with themselves, they know that they don't go back to certain places because of one experience, and our patients are the same.
Yeah. Very much.
Are there like some things, I'm sure it's different for every practice, but is there like something where you say, okay, I see this all the time, and these 3 things are like the easiest things you should look at and fix in your practice? Like, no, like you do as a doctor, you don't pay attention to it, but if you want to elevate your space, like look at, you were talking about lighting, colors, and textures or something maybe, but I don't know if, like, I definitely see lighting. Like lighting, I can see that make a huge difference in a clinic. Like the fluorescent flickering lights versus some nice, like, like lamps. Like it's just like, for me, the lighting makes a huge difference. But are there any other things where you would say, okay, if you're on a budget, you don't want to redecorate, but like you want to walk in your office tomorrow, like look at those things and see what you can improve there. What would you recommend there?
I'm going to refer back to the list in those 5 ways to instantly update your office, although I don't have them memorized off the top of my head. But the very first thing is, how cluttered is it? So getting things cleaned out. You were talking about feng shui, Steve. It's like, you need to get the things that do not support the business in the clutter area out, because those actually, it will get into, they can suck energy, but also it's that first impression where things don't go together. Okay. The other thing is and we talk about things that are dated, because things that are dated don't look like you're up to date with now. There's a difference between classic design and dated design too. Okay. That's a whole nother webinar we'll do. But the point is that are things dated? And you may need someone else to tell you they're dated or not. But once again, 7 to 10 years. If it's much longer than that, it's probably dated. These are not necessarily in order, but I mean, I literally, we get pictures from our doctors. They give us their current office. It's just amazing to me. Not only is it cluttered, but the duct tape on the tables. I'm like, are you serious? What?
Wow.
We are going to reupholster those in your new office, right? It's not that big. It's not that expensive, and I know it has to be done just right because you need the cushions and all those things to be done just perfectly, but just the things like that, the clutter, the wires hanging out everywhere, things like that can be cleaned up.
I'm sorry.
And
I'm
then
curious about
the accessories on the wall. Are they dated? Are they framed? Don't stick a picture on the wall with thumbtacks. I'm sorry. You can go to Walmart or you can go to Michael's and find you a frame. It doesn't have to be expensive. It just needs to look polished and finished.
Right. I'm curious about, you were talking about reducing clutter and, having a very clean office design. I can see how that, it just elevates your practice. But I'm curious about like how you draw the line or how you differentiate between like these clean kind of medical offices that kind of give the wrong vibe, I think, for chiropractic, because you want to be different than, like this medical kind of cold feeling, like you're in a, I don't know, just clinical feel,
Okay,
versus like being like clean and not cluttered, but still warm and welcoming.
Okay, let me give you examples of clutter. So the warm and the welcoming have a lot to do with the color and the lights. Okay, a whole lot to do with the color and the lights. Does not have to do with clutter or non-clutter. Clutter and non-clutter, you can have medical offices that are full of clutter too. Okay, so when I'm talking clutters, I'm talking about you walk in and you have 15 different brochures posted on the desk. It's like the person doesn't know what to look at. They're not looking at any of it. It's the week, whatever we're doing every week of the month or it's like, why do you have all that? It's amazing how much it's like flat surface syndrome. Let's just see what we can stick up there. And are things taped on stuff? It's like, why are we taping things on things? I understand you want to get a message there, but people aren't reading it. There's too much. Have one focus that you want them to read I love the offices that will have you walk in and they could be a blackboard or something, and they're really focused on one or two things. That's it. Something like that.
I really like plants in offices. I feel like there's not enough plants in.
Yeah, there's not enough plants. So the other things that you can't necessarily fix are getting natural light in.
Right.
Natural light. There's so many evidence-based design about what natural light does to you as a human psychic. Okay. And just how important it is to try to get it through. So what we do in a lot of the design, let's just say you have a storefront, which is pretty common. Your lights coming in the front, don't block it. I understand there might be issues that you have sun coming in at certain times. Find solar screens or things that'll block the heat and the brightness, but allow that light to flow in. And then do what you can to get light through the space. You don't have to have drywall up to the ceiling. You can have some, what they call clear stories up at the top. You can have partially height walls where it's appropriate, depending on what you're doing. Anything you can do to pull that light forward into the space is really key, especially if you just think about the lighting itself. And you were talking about fluorescent lighting. LED, I don't know if it's the best light source for people. I mean, there's a whole lot of studies on that too, but at least the color of the light can be better, and the closer you are to natural light, the more energy there is. The lower you want the energy, the lower you go to the warmer lights. So light has a lot to do with impacting energy.
Yeah. Makes total sense. I love plants too, and I had a room it was a consultation room, and it was closed, but I still had a plant in there. And my solution was just to replace the plant every 3 months, which was sad for the plant. But I need to
there are services you can hire that do that. Okay, but they can, and it's it is an expense, but they come in and they make sure those plants are beautiful all the time and they're flourishing. And when need to, they replace them. And that's just
I
what
like that.
That's a great idea, for people.
I love that too.
I'm in the process of creating new practices here in Austin, so we're going to be talking, Carolyn.
And that actually brings me to, sorry, Steve,
Yeah.
I just want to throw this in because we kind of talked about, if you have a space and you want to elevate it, what do you do? But I'm curious, like, if you are a doctor who's either wanting to open their own practice or just moving into a new location, I would start on Pinterest and like, oh, I want to, look at this and look at that. But like, what's actually the first step that somebody would take or should look at or think about when they're planning a move that revolves around like building out a space and, like more than just furniture? Like where do they need to get started with that project?
Well, the very first thing that you need to do is think of you're starting a brand new business from scratch and you're creating a business plan. And no, you don't have to recreate a business plan, but that element of how much space do I need to create the practice I need it to be, to provide the services I want to provide. How much space do I need? Getting really, really clear on that before you ever consider looking for space. And then secondly, form follows function is 3-dimensionally. How do I hopefully we already have a brand and we've worked with Paksha and we've got it down, but how do I pull that brand into my environment? And when you get really, really clear, we do that and we have 6 steps. We have a 6-step signature process, but that step number 1 can just really help get clarity and help really anchor. And if you understand the reticular activating mechanism, it can help you find space faster. Okay, because you'll know what to say no to and what to say yes to. It helps you with a broker because a broker is really clear. What we do is we create a range of square footage, and we have one that's kind of like, this is a nice to have. This is what I'd really like to have. And then here's a minimum of what I absolutely have to meet my business plan. And it's all based on net square footage, which is a whole nother seminar on net versus gross. And you need to know that when you're looking at space. But if you don't have that, then you can't have the services that you want in the space. So why even look at the space? Don't fall in love with something like that. I'm going to say this really quick. Every once in a while, the location is so primo, like Austin did for his first space. So that's how Paksha and I know each other, through Austin Cohen. His first space was smaller than he really needed for all of his services, but it was such a primo location that we found a way to overlap services so that he could be in that space to grow. And he grew like crazy because he knew what he wanted. So anyway, I don't know if that helps or not. So that's step 1 before you ever, and you do that even if you're thinking about remodeling your existing space. It's like, what is the square footage requirement that I need? And then aesthetically, how do I need to show up to the public before you ever look for space? Then step 2 is after you find space, and we say it usually takes from the time you know what you want till the time you find the space you want, that you sign the lease. We say give yourself about 4 months. That's usually the timeline. In those 4 months, you'll see different spaces, and there's a process called space study test fit, and that should be done before you ever sign a lease. So once you have a letter of intent, or if you're looking at buying a space, it's even more important when you're buying a space, because then you're locked in for long term. But before you lock in financially, you spend some due diligence money to really explore how that space can lay out for you and how then aesthetically it could show up. So it becomes very conceptual design. You would understand conceptual design and space planning. And then you sign the lease. And then you go into the set of construction drawings and all that type of stuff to get done. So we have step 3, 4, and 5 to get through that. And then step 6 is we walk with our clients through the construction process. Does that help?
All right. Yeah, definitely. Steve?
Yeah, no, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate everything you've shared with us. This is a new perspective that I think the profession definitely, even though you've worked with 700 offices, there's a whole lot more out there that could definitely benefit from this, including my own. So Pacha, I think we're probably ready for our rapid fire round. So
Yeah, I think so too.
So Carolyn, we like to do some rapid fire questions. What conversation in the profession is not happening that should be?
Besides the one we're having right now?
Yeah.
Well, you know that the profession needs to unify. So I don't know how. I've been around it since 2004, and it needs to unify. I don't know how that's going to happen, but it needs to show up because the public doesn't know.
Yeah.
Doesn't know. It's not the same from place to place, you know?
Definitely. There was just a really quick, there was a great moment yesterday where that was happening with the Making America Healthy Again movement. So there's progress.
Yes. Oh, and I'm so excited about that. Very excited about that whole. Yes, I think that is going to help the profession tremendously, because the more that happens, the less, hey, I'm the black sheep of the healthcare world persona of the chiropractor will go away.
Mm-hmm. Okay, without naming names, what's the worst layout you've ever seen in a clinic? Or aesthetic, maybe? You have anything that was like, oh my gosh, this was like crazy?
You mean before we did the work?
Yeah. Before, when they're like, yeah, I think we need your help, and then you walk in, you're like, holy cow.
Yeah, I think that the hardest ones are when the doctor, and this is across the board, and is when they come to us and they've already leased a space or bought a space, and then they want to cram everything that they want in it. And it's really hard because they can't, or everything gets reduced so that the space, like just even the space around an adjusting table, if it's not the right amount of space, that'll slow a doctor down. You know, just taking away 6 inches can slow a doctor down. Mm-hmm. So just seeing that happen and having had to do that, because I know there was a doctor we work with in Virginia that he had a space. He was an integrated medical doctor, chiropractor, everything. He'd had a whole full space, and he leased a new space. The new space was bigger than his existing space, but then he wanted to build it out as raw space. And it was like, you can't get as many rooms as you want. And he said, well, why not? I have them here. I said, yeah, but your rooms are like 6 feet wide, you know? And it was like that whole mentality of how much space I really need before I can leave space is why we're really advocates of going. So did that answer your question? Cramming things in.
Okay. Sounds good.
Definitely. Hey, Carolyn, thank you so much for this opportunity to share with us. For listeners who want to go deeper with you and explore your work, what's the best way for them to find you?
So our website is crossfieldsdesign.com. They can also Google chiropractic office design, and we come up pretty far near the top. So Crossfields is our company, Crossfields Design. And I'll shoot you over a link specifically to that 5 ways to upgrade your image directly. So, but it's one of our free resources. But we've got a lot of free resources. As you heard, we started out teaching. So the whole website started as just nothing but a blog before we ever did offices.
We'll make sure we'll link all the stuff, all the goodies that you have. Send them to me, and we'll share them in the show notes and when we share the episode. So
okay, that sounds great.
It was so awesome to have you on the show. I'm so excited to have another outsider. You know. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for being here, and thanks everybody for listening. And we'll see you on the next episode next week.
Okay.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.